In 1926, we erased the wolf from Yellowstone. 70 years later, just 14 came back and accidentally changed the course of its rivers. Nobody planned this. The wolves were brought back for one reason, and what they did instead rebuilt an entire wilderness. The forests, the songbirds, the beavers, and the rivers themselves, and it's the small, strange ones that surprise everybody. In 1926, a park ranger raised a rifle and shot the last wolf in Yellowstone. Nobody mourned it. Miss how it happened, and you miss one of the most astonishing accidents in the history of the natural world. In 1926, park rangers killed the last wolf pack in Yellowstone. Back then, the wolf was the enemy, a killer to be wiped off the map. And once it was gone, the park fell quiet. It looked, if anything, more peaceful. It wasn't. Without a top predator, the whole system tilted out of balance. The elk had nothing left to fear. Their numbers climbed, and they ate. They grazed the young trees down to stubble, stripped the riverbanks bare, and flattened the valleys until much of the green was simply gone. Songbirds thinned out, beavers vanished, and the bare, loosened soil began washing straight into the rivers. For decades, people tried to fix it, culling the elk by the thousand. It was never enough. So they tried something no one in America had ever done. In the winter of 1995, just 14 gray wolves were captured in Canada, crated, and released into the Yellowstone backcountry. They were few, and they were strangers to this land. They had one job, as far as anyone was concerned: put a missing hunter back at the top of the food chain, and bring the runaway elk under control. What happened to the water? Nobody saw that coming. Nobody even knew if it would work. What those 14 wolves did next rewrote the rule book of ecology. Here's the first surprise. The killing was never the point. Yes, the wolves hunted elk. Of course they did. But that alone didn't remake Yellowstone. What remade it was fear. For the first time in 70 years, the elk couldn't simply stand in one spot and eat a valley to the ground. They had to stay alert. They had to keep moving. And they began avoiding the most dangerous places, the deep valleys, the gorges, the riverbanks, where a wolf could corner them. Ecologists have a name for it, the ecology of fear, and the moment the elk stopped hammering those places, something began that no one had seen in living memory. Those places started to heal, so the wolves didn't heal the land by killing, they healed it by changing where the elk dared to go. And what grew back in those abandoned valleys would soon bring an entire lost world flooding back. If you've never heard how far this accident actually goes, you'll want to see the end. Subscribe and stay with me because it builds to something genuinely hard to believe. In the valleys the elk now avoided, the trees came back, aspen, willow, cottonwood, growing free for the first time in decades. And they didn't grow slowly. In some parts of the park, the young trees grew as much as 5 times taller in just 6 years. Bare, eroded hillsides turned back into forest almost within a single childhood. And the trees brought life with them. Songbirds returned to the new canopy. Migratory birds arrived in numbers no one had counted in years. A valley that had gone silent was suddenly full of sound again. So bare ground became forest, and silence became birdsong. But one animal loved these new trees more than anything else alive. And it was about to rebuild the entire system from the ground up: the beaver. Beavers eat trees, and with the willow and aspen back, the beavers returned too. That matters far more than it sounds, because the beaver, like the wolf, is what scientists call an ecosystem engineer. It doesn't just live in a landscape, it builds one. As beaver numbers rose, their dams spread across the streams, and every dam created a pond, still sheltered sun-warmed water. Those ponds became nurseries for otters, muskrats, ducks, fish, frogs, and reptiles, a whole community that had nowhere to live before. So the wolves brought back the trees brought back the beaver, and the beaver built homes for dozens of other species. And while all of this unfolded in the water, the wolves were quietly reshaping the other hunters of Yellowstone too. Wolves don't tolerate rivals. As they spread across the park, they hunted down coyotes, and coyote numbers fell. With fewer coyotes, the small animals coyotes preyed on got a reprieve. Rabbits and mice multiplied, and that surge fed everything above them. More hawks, more foxes, more weasels, more badgers. Then there was what the wolves left behind. Every kill became a feast for others. Ravens and bald eagles dropped in to feed on the carrion. Bears fed on it too, and with the regenerating shrubs now heavy with berries, the bears had more to eat than they'd had in years. Their numbers climbed. And the bears repaid the favor, taking some elk calves themselves, pressing on the herds alongside the wolves. So 14 wolves lifted hawks, foxes, badgers, eagles, ravens, and bears, all at once. And yet none of that is the part that stunned the scientists, because the wolves were about to do something that shouldn't be possible. Everything so far you could just about picture. Trees, birds, beavers, bears, one thing feeding the next. But what comes now is different. The wolves reach beyond the living world entirely and change the physical shape of Yellowstone itself. They change the rivers. Stay with me, because even the researchers who found it could hardly believe what they were seeing. The rivers of Yellowstone began to behave differently. They meandered less, they eroded less, the channels narrowed. More deep pools formed, more shallow riffle sections. The exact patterns a wild, healthy river needs. But why would wolves change a river? The answer runs all the way back through the chain. Those regenerating forests growing in the valleys the elk now avoided drove their roots deep into the banks. The banks stopped collapsing, and a river with stable banks holds its course instead of tearing sideways through loose soil. Less erosion on the valley sides, less silt in the water, a river running clear and fixed. And here's the thing, no one had planned for a single piece of it. You don't reintroduce a wolf to reshape a river. Nobody thought it was even possible. The scientists were simply watching a side effect, tumbling all the way down from one predator to the very shape of the ground. 14 wolves transformed not just the wildlife of Yellowstone, but its physical geography. So a handful of predators quietly rewrote the map of an entire landscape by accident. Which leaves one last question, and it's the one that matters most. It's been more than 25 years since the wolves came home. Today, Yellowstone is the wildest it has been in over a century. And here's the detail that stops you cold. Even now, there are only around 80 to 125 wolves in the whole park. A tiny number, an almost unimaginable effect. The lesson is simple, and it reaches far beyond Yellowstone. An ecosystem works best when it still holds all of its pieces, including the ones we once feared and destroyed. A whole, healthy ecosystem grows more plants faster, it pulls more carbon out of the air. It even helps steady the climate. And most hopeful of all, it happened fast. We so often talk about our effect on the planet as pure loss. Yellowstone is proof it can run the other way, that biodiversity can come back in years, not centuries, if we simply give it the chance. So 14 wolves didn't just come home. They showed us that damage, even damage we thought was permanent, can be undone. That's the part worth carrying with you. 14 animals brought back the forests, the birds, the beavers, and the bears, and bent the rivers themselves back into shape. Nature was never as fragile as we feared. If that gives you hope, subscribe and tell me, what would you bring back? And if you want to watch the wolves themselves, the packs, the hunts, the lives behind this whole story, that one's right here. Because there's a twist this story doesn't tell you. The moment one of these wolves steps a single paw outside the park, everything changes, and that fight is still raging today. That one's next.